All right, so I'm going to start here. Next part is we're going to talk about the header and we're going to talk about the navbar and how we're going to repurpose that over a whole bunch of different breakpoints. And we're going to use Flexbox to lay this all out because Flexbox is very cool when it comes to navbars. It does amazing things. And again, this is one of the big differentiators between Flexbox and Grid. Flexbox can do some things with the navbar that are really just not possible with Grid. So let's take a look at our screenshots for what we're going for. So here is the desktop version of the navbar. Notice here I've got the logo in the middle. This tends to be a really popular trend right now. How do we get a logo in the middle of the navbar when we go to a tablet and we can put the logo on the top with the navbar underneath? So how are we going to make that magic happen? And then finally on mobile, I've just set these navigation buttons up as buttons. In my advanced CSS layouts course, I do walk through how to do a hamburger button solution using CSS only. So since I did that there, I thought we'd do some different styling here to show you how to make buttons here instead for your mobile navigation. There's only a few of these, so the layout works. Okay, so let's start then with our HTML and our CSS. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to have to put the HTML into this web page. So it's the header of the document, so we want it to go probably at the top, probably before the mission. And so in basic format, we're going to have a header, right? Slash header. Then inside of that, we're going to have what? We're going to have some navigation. One of the nice things about navigation is that there's really only one correct way to code navigation on your website, and that is with an unordered list. That is all navigation is. It is an unordered list of links. You can visit them in any particular order. I know the marketing department wants them to go in a very specific order on the web page, and that's fine, but it is not an ordered list. It is an unordered list. So we can set that up. And then we can set up our 4 navigation items that we have here. So we have an LI, we have an A. We'll set these not to really go anywhere in particular because we're not going to build a whole bunch of pages for these. This is collections /A/LI. And then we can just copy paste that. So we have 4 of those. And we're going to have about, contact, and donations. Okay, straightforward enough. That's a navbar. And if we just take a look at what we've got so far, open it up in our default browser, that's what it should look like. A tiny little navbar up there in the upper left-hand corner with all ugly blue underlined links. Okay. So now what do we do in order to get a logo on the page? Well, we're going to make this logo part of this navbar. So we can say LI, ahref to make it a clickable logo. It's going to go somewhere, probably back to the home page. And then here for our image, we're just simply going to say img src. The image source is going to be what? Here it is, headerlogo.svg. I put it outside of these folders. This is a new element that you're going to want to grab. So it is directly inside of folder number 5. Here's the file here called headerlogo.svg. You can just drag that into the images directory. Yes, go ahead and move it. You'll want to copy it to the end folder if you're going to use that. And then we can get back to typing here. So image source, image / headerlogo.svg. That's going to be our image here for the logo. And then we need, of course, always need our alt text, wall of wonder, click for home. I always like to add a click for home at the end of my alt text Because it's a clickable logo, if we just say Wall of Wonder, no one has any idea what it's there for. So I always like to say click for home to indicate its purpose. Then we can close that, close the link, close the LI, save that. And once again, when we refresh the page, now you should see the logo up there with its own bullet point. So the last thing that we probably are going to wind up needing here, because once again, we want to have yellow, we want it to stretch the full width of the web page. We can add to this, I'm going to do exactly the same thing here, div with a class of header. And we can close that div down here at the bottom. So we'll style that up so that header class gives us the yellow all the way across. Then the header, which is the more meaningful, more semantic tag, is one level in. That is going to contain our navigation bar and our logo and so forth.
Sometimes when I make a web page, the footer displays kind of in the center of the screen. It's not sticking to the bottom. Okay. What's the solution for that?
Well, if your footer is displaying in the middle of the page and it's on top of some stuff, then you were probably using some kind of positioning with that. Often it's sticky positioning or it's fixed positioning that you're using with your footer, and that can do some weird things. If you are using regular old position static styling, that's the default for all HTML elements unless you change the position property to some other value. Your footer should always be at the bottom of the web page or in the source order, exactly in the order in which it should go. Unless you're talking about the footer shows up in the middle of the web page because the page is short. Is that the other problem? And that would be the other issue. Remember what I told you earlier is that the height of the content determines the height of the web page. So the content by default, if you only have a tiny little bit of content, then that footer is definitely going to come up and show up wherever, in the middle of the page or someplace else, wherever that content ends, and the footer is coming up right after it. So if you don't want that type of effect, you could always set some kind of height somewhere on your web page, or tell Flexbox to stretch, or some combination of those types of things to try to push the footer down to the bottom. So that would be something that I would think about there too.